onset before you get into anything, you need to define what is success, and we'll get into how you do that. The next step is identifying those use cases which you want to automate, as well as what is the technical feasibility, like are these use cases even automated, right? Then we get into the business case development, and then finally into a delivery and execution map of how you can prepare it. Now, looking at how you define success, right? Like I said, 3 broad outcomes is what you should be looking at. Is your customer satisfied? Is your agent empowered? And are you saving costs with using this technology? The broad levers that you can use to control these outcomes is improve self-service deflection rates, boost agents' productivity and efficiency, modernize your contact center infrastructure. So something that Matt spoke about, how CCI platform statefully integrates and has these AI capabilities, while also gives you the ability to have a cloud-based contact center platform that sort of scales with how your organization scales. And then finally, having the right kind of insights and how you can predict customer behavior. So these are some of the broad levers. And if you distill them down into actual measurable KPIs, you would see something like, first of all, resolution rates, containment rates, cost per interaction. Right? These are some of the metrics that are very readily available, and even if they're not, they are like proxies or like data points that you would have in your organization that can get into these KPIs. So, step 1, define success. Identify how your contact center is performing on these measurable KPIs, and set a baseline. Right? And from there on, you say, all right now I'm doing 7% containment. Let's target 25. How can we get there? So, how can you get there? Again, a very simple and effective approach. So, what you need to do is you need to identify your use cases on a 2x2 matrix. The x-axis sort of talks about the degree of automation. What are those backend systems, and what is the readiness of those backend systems so that these use cases can be automated? And again, some of the other aspects that go into determining your roadmap is your current cost. And current cost is essentially a proxy of how many calls or chats are you getting for that particular use case. That effectively boils down to how many agents are supporting that use case, right? So that's sort of like a determinant of your current cost. The degree of automation is how feasible it is to automate, and the bubble size essentially represents the complexity of that use case from a development perspective. So let me take an example. If you want to increase the limit of your credit card, that's a fairly easy use case. All you need to tell about is what are the last 4 digits of your credit card, probably authenticate yourself, and that's it, right? But when you're talking about a more healthcare specific use case, right? If somebody needs care or somebody needs to discuss that condition, like that is something that is more nuanced, right? Like that is a user journey that would involve different considerations and different possibilities. So from a development complexity perspective, right, assess how complex or simple your use cases are, and essentially you'll be able to get to a 2x2 matrix that tells you the use cases on the top right are something that are high value because there's a very high level of degree of automation. They are actually driving a lot of cost on your contact center, and they are relatively easy to automate. So again, this gives you a roadmap of how you should look at the different use cases that you want to automate. And then finally getting to a business case, right? Going back to some of those KPIs, what we can help you do is sort of craft this out, like based on the use cases that we saw in the previous slide, as well as some of the metrics that are listed here. Right? You will be able to build a use case of, okay, let's say this use case we can achieve 80% containment, this use case we can probably get 20%. So that will help you give a 3-year or a long-term view of how much you can drive from containment and how much you can drive from AHT savings. And again, the worksheet will sort of have these questions, right? So if you fill them in, that will sort of give you a better idea of how to look at it. And then finally, execute. Again, The execution is something that, again, Quantiphi as an organization takes a lot of pride on, because we really do well at identifying who should do what and who should not do what. So again, from a delivery framework, right, we at the onset we understand and we clearly sort of baseline on what are the customer's expectations, and the customer here should be the authority on what is the roadmap, right? Like, what do you want to implement first, and what should come for later, right? What is how ready your backend system and your technical ecosystems. So some of those responsibilities lies with the customer. From an implementation and an OEM partnership, right? What we bring in is a constant sort of oversight on the technology, on the delivery, as well as a constant stream of resources and engineers who are skilled and who've been doing this day in, day out. And the way we structure our teams is also very targeted towards the work that we do. So typically, our delivery team would have a more strategic team that would just work with the customer in identifying and refining the roadmap. And so that's the core strategic team. And they will also work on guiding some of the more hands-on team on what are some of the best practices, right? How can you overcome some challenges? How can you make the solution that is more scalable? Then is the core implementation team that does the work day in, day out. And then is the continuous improvement team. So once the core implementation team does what they have to do, they hand it off to the continuous improvement team, and they sort of keep the solution more relevant and as per more appropriate to customers' changing behaviors. So that's in a nutshell how we typically deliver. And the last step in our digital transformation journey. Like I said, if you guys have filled out the questionnaire, we can take that back